The silence of space was broken by the hum of engines as two ships faced each other in the Kepler 442 system. Captain Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of the coalition vessel Harmony's Edge, staring at the strange ship on his view screen. The alien. Craft looked rough and dirty with metal patches covering its hull and smoke coming from its engines. "Sir, we've never seen a ship designed like this," said his communications officer, adjusting her headset. "The materials they're using are primitive. Iron, steel, and some kind of carbon composite." Hyun-woo nodded slowly. In his 20 years with the Galactic Coalition, he had seen many species try to enter space travel. Most failed quickly when they met the Coalition's standard protocols. This new species would be no different. "Open a channel," he commanded. The view screen flickered, and suddenly he was looking at the bridge of the alien ship. The creatures were bipedal, with strange pale and dark skin tones. They had only 2 eyes each and no visible breathing apparatus. Most shocking of all, they appeared to be breathing unfiltered air. "Unknown vessel, you have entered Coalition space without permission," Hyun-woo announced. "Identify yourselves immediately." A female alien stepped forward. Her dark hair was tied back, and she wore a simple uniform with strange symbols. "This is Captain Da-Yun of the Earth vessel Soul's Pride. We're explorers from the Sol system. We didn't know this area belonged to anyone." "Earth?" Hyun-woo had never heard of such a place. He gestured to his science officer, who began scanning their databases. "You will submit to inspection and follow our ship to the nearest coalition station." Captain Da-Eun crossed her arms. "I'm afraid we can't do that. We have our own mission to complete." The bridge crew of the Harmony's Edge exchanged glances. Most species became frightened when they first encountered the coalition. These humans seemed almost casual about the situation. "Sir," whispered his tactical officer, "their ship is armed. Primitive weapons. But they have a lot of them." Hyun-woo frowned. "You misunderstand the situation, Captain Da-Yun. This is not a request. The Coalition has authority over this sector. You will comply, or we will use force." The human captain actually smiled. "Force? We'd rather not fight, but we're not going to be bullied either." This was unprecedented. Hyun-woo had used this approach on dozens of species, and they always surrendered when faced with the Coalition's superior technology. He decided to move to the next phase of the protocol. "Very well. Since you refuse to see reason, we will help. You understand your position." He turned to his weapons officer. "Deploy the fear inducers." The weapons officer's 4 arms moved quickly across his console. "Fear gas deployed, sir. Full atmospheric saturation in 30 seconds. On the view screen, Hyun-woo watched as pale green gas began to fill the human ship. The fear inducer was the Coalition's most effective non-lethal weapon. It triggered primal terror in every known species, causing immediate surrender. The gas contained carefully designed chemical compounds that activated the fear centers of most brains. "Sir, their life signs are spiking," reported the medical officer. "Heart rates increasing across their ship. Perfect." Hyun-woo sat back in his chair, expecting to see panic on the human bridge. Instead, he saw Captain Da-Eun take a deep breath of the green gas and turn to someone off-screen. "Tai-min, are you getting this in engineering?" she called out. A male voice responded over their communication system. "Yeah, Captain. Whatever this stuff is, it smells like home. Reminds me of Seoul on a smoggy day." Hyun-woo's 3 eyes widened. "What did he just say?" The human captain breathed in again and nodded. "I was thinking the same thing. Smells like the old industrial district near the port." The Coalition bridge fell silent. The medical officer checked his instruments twice before speaking. Sir, their stress levels are decreasing. The fear gas is having no effect. In fact, their efficiency ratings are going up. That's impossible. Hyan Wu stood up from his chair. The fear inducer has worked on every species we've encountered. It triggers immediate panic responses. On the view screen, the humans continued their work as if nothing had happened. A young male officer walked onto their bridge, carrying a cup of some dark liquid. He inhaled deeply and sighed with satisfaction. "Engineering's running smooth, Captain," he reported. "Whatever they're pumping in here actually helps me focus. The engines are running better than they have all week." Captain Da Yun nodded and looked directly at Hyun Woo. "I don't know what you were trying to accomplish with that gas, but it's actually quite pleasant. Our medical officer says it's giving everyone a nice adrenaline boost without the jitters." The Coalition science officer frantically ran scans on the human ship. "Sir, the gas concentration is at maximum levels. Any other species would be in complete panic by now, but their crew is working faster and more efficiently than before we deployed." Hyun Woo felt a chill run down his spine. In 30 years of space exploration, the Coalition had never encountered a species immune to their fear weapons. Every creature in the known galaxy responded to the carefully designed chemical triggers with terror and submission. "Try a different compound," he ordered. "Sir, we only carry one type of fear inducer. It's been effective on all 147 species in Coalition space." On the human ship, Captain Da Yun was now drinking from a similar cup to her officers. The green gas swirled around her, but she seemed completely comfortable. If anything, she looked more relaxed than when the conversation started. "Look," she said, addressing Hyun Woo directly, "we don't want any trouble. We're just passing through on our way to the outer rim. But if you're going to keep spraying us with whatever that is, could you at least tell us what it's supposed to do? Our science officer is curious about the chemical composition." The Coalition crew stared at their screens in disbelief. Not only were the humans unaffected by their primary weapon, they were treating it like a curiosity. Hyun Woo's mind raced. If these humans were immune to fear induction, what else might they be capable of? Their ship looked primitive, but appearances could be deceiving. Any species that could ignore the Coalition's psychological weapons was potentially very dangerous. "End the gas deployment," he ordered quietly. "Sir, I said end it. Now." The green gas stopped flowing from the Coalition ship. On the human vessel, several crew members actually looked disappointed. "Oh, that's too bad," came the voice of Tai Min from engineering. "I was just getting comfortable down here." Captain Da Yun shrugged. "Well, if that's all you wanted to show us, we'll be on our way, unless you have something else to discuss." For the first time in his career, Captain Hyun Woo had no idea what to say. These humans had just shrugged off the Coalition's most effective weapon like it was a pleasant breeze. He needed time to think, to report back to command, to understand what they were dealing with. "This conversation isn't over," he finally said, and cut the communication channel. As the human ship began to move away, Hyun Woo realized that everything the Coalition thought they knew about first contact protocols had just been thrown out the airlock. These humans were unlike anything they had ever encountered, and that terrified him more than any weapon ever could. Captain Hyun Woo paced his bridge like a caged animal. The human ship's soul's pride was still visible on their long-range sensors, moving slowly through the asteroid field. Every instinct told him to attack, but his orders were clear. Avoid unnecessary conflicts with unknown species until their capabilities were assessed. "Sir, incoming message from Coalition Command," announced his communications officer. Admiral Bitney's hologram appeared in the center of the bridge. Her scaled skin was a deep blue color, indicating high stress levels. Captain Hyon Wu, your report about the fear gas failure has caused quite a stir at headquarters. Command wants a full analysis of these humans before we proceed. With respect, Admiral, I think we should treat them as a potential threat. Any species that can ignore our psychological weapons is exactly why we need more information, the Admiral interrupted. Deploy surveillance drones and monitor their behavior. Do not engage unless they show hostile intent. The hologram flickered off, leaving Hyun-woo frustrated but bound by his orders. He turned to his tactical officer. Launch stealth drones. I want to know everything about how these humans operate. Meanwhile, aboard the Soul's Pride, Captain Da-Yoon was having her own meeting with her senior staff. The ship's conference room was small and functional, with a simple metal table and mismatched chairs. The air recycling system hummed loudly in the background. "So what do we think that was about?" she asked, looking around the table at her officers. Chief, Engineer Tae-min wiped grease from his hands with an old rag. That gas they used felt familiar. Reminded me of working in the old factories back on Earth. Made me feel more alert, actually. Medical Officer Yoon-ji nodded thoughtfully. I ran some quick scans while it was happening. The gas contained several compounds that would normally trigger fear responses. But in our crew, it just increased focus and reduced fatigue. Heart rates went up, but in a good way. Like drinking coffee? Asked Young-soo, the tactical officer. More. Like breathing the air in downtown Seoul during rush hour? Tae-min laughed. You know that mix of exhaust, industrial fumes, and whatever else makes the city run. Da-eun frowned. Are you saying that gas was supposed to scare us? That's my best guess, Yoon-ji replied. Most species probably have cleaner air than we're used to. What smells normal to us might be terrifying to them. Through the small conference room window, they could see the coalition ship maintaining its distance. Da-eun had dealt with bullies before, and she recognized the pattern. The aliens were regrouping, trying to figure out their next move. What's our status, Tae-min? Engines are running smooth. Better than smooth, actually. That gas seemed to clear out some buildup in the air filters. We're running more efficiently than we have in months. Young-soo pulled up tactical displays on his tablet. Their ship is definitely more advanced than ours, but it's built for intimidation rather than actual fighting. Lots of fancy electronics, but I bet their hull is weaker than ours. How can you tell? Look at the design. It's all curves and smooth. Surfaces. Pretty to look at, but not practical for taking hits. Our ship looks like junk, but every piece of armor has been tested in actual combat. Daeun had to admit he was right. The Soul's Pride had been built in Earth's orbital shipyards, where every component was designed to survive the harsh conditions of space and industrial accidents. The ship looked rough because it was tough. Back on the coalition vessel, the surveillance drones were sending back fascinating data. The science officer, a tall insectoid named Click-Click, studied the readings with growing amazement. Captain, you need to see this, he called out. The internal atmosphere of their ship is remarkable. Hyun-woo walked over to the science station. What did you find? Their air mixture contains compounds that would be toxic to most known species. Carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, and dozens of trace chemicals that our databases classify as industrial pollutants. You're saying their ship has contaminated air? No, sir. I'm saying they prefer it that way. Watch this. Click-Click pulled up a recording from inside the human ship. This is their engineering section. On the screen, They could see Tae Min working on a large machine. Sparks flew as he welded a piece of metal, filling the air with smoke and fumes. Instead of wearing protective gear, he simply rolled up his sleeves and kept working. "Look at his vital signs," Click continued. "He's completely comfortable. The smoke and fumes that would send our crew to the medical bay are actually helping him concentrate." Another drone showed the human bridge, where Captain Da-un was drinking from a steaming cup while reviewing star charts. The liquid in the cup was dark brown and appeared to be boiling hot. "What is she consuming?" asked Hyun-woo. "Chemical analysis indicates it's a stimulant beverage containing caffeine, acids, and bitter compounds. The temperature is high enough to cause burns to most species' internal tissues." Hyun-woo watched as the human captain took another large gulp of the burning liquid and smiled with satisfaction. Nothing about these creatures made sense. "Sir, another observation," Click added. "Their ship's power systems are incredibly inefficient by our standards. They're burning fuel at rates that would bankrupt most civilizations, but they don't seem to care about waste." "Because they come from a world where resources are abundant?" "No, sir. Based on their conversations, it's the opposite. They come from a world where resources are scarce, so they've learned to make inefficient systems work through determination and constant maintenance." Through the drone feeds, they watched Tae Min fixing a broken pipe with nothing but scrap metal and some kind of adhesive. The repair looked rough and temporary, but it held pressure and kept working. Their engineering philosophy appears to be, "If it works, don't fix it," Click observed. But they've mastered the art of making broken things work anyway. On the human ship, the crew was going about their daily routines. They ate food that looked bland and colorless, worked in conditions that would be considered harsh by coalition standards, and seemed genuinely happy about it. Most disturbing of all, they showed no fear of the unknown. While coalition protocol demanded extensive scans and analysis before approaching anything new, the humans simply adapted to whatever they encountered. "Captain," the communications officer interrupted, "the humans are sending us a message." "Captain." Da-un appeared on the main screen again, still holding her cup of burning liquid. "Hello again. We noticed your drones following us, and we wanted to let you know we don't mind. We're always happy to make new friends." She took another drink and continued. "We're heading toward the outer rim to explore some new star systems. You're welcome to come along if you want. We could share information about our respective civilizations." Teros. Casualness of her invitation was staggering. She was offering to share potentially sensitive information with complete strangers, simply because she found them interesting. Hyun-woo muted the communication channel and turned to his crew. "Thoughts?" "Sir, they're either incredibly naive or incredibly confident," said the tactical officer. "Given that they're immune to our fear weapons, I'm leaning toward confident," Click added. Hyun-woo unmuted the channel. "Captain Da-un, we appreciate your offer, but we have our own duties to attend to." "No problem. If you change your mind, we'll be around. And thanks again for that gas earlier. Our engineer wants to know if you have more. He says it really improved his productivity." The transmission ended, leaving the coalition crew staring at each other in bewilderment. Not only were the humans unaffected by their weapons, they actually wanted more. As Hyun-woo watched the human ship disappear into the asteroid field, he realized they were dealing with something unprecedented. These humans didn't just survive in harsh conditions. They thrived in them. And that made them either the most valuable allies or the most dangerous enemies the coalition had ever encountered. Admiral Bitna's claws tapped impatiently against her command console as she reviewed Captain Hyan-Wu's report for the third time. The data made no sense. A species immune to fear induction was theoretically impossible according to Coalition. Science! Summon the weapons development team, she commanded her aide. If our standard fear compounds won't work on these humans, we need stronger measures. Dr. Vex 9, the Coalition's chief psychological warfare specialist, arrived within the hour. His multiple tentacles writhed nervously as he examined the sensor readings from the human encounter. Fascinating, he said, his voice bubbling through his breathing apparatus. Their brain chemistry appears completely different from any known species. The fear compounds that terrorize others seem to actually stimulate their pleasure centers. Kentai sighed. You develop something more effective? Admiral Bitna asked. Certainly. I have several experimental compounds that should work. Even if their brains are wired differently, every living creature has survival instincts that can be triggered. Meanwhile, the Soul's Pride continued its journey through the asteroid field. Captain Da-Un was reviewing their survey data when her communications officer, Min-Ho, called out from his station. Captain, we're receiving multiple signals from the Coalition ship. Looks like they're trying different frequencies and transmission types. What kind of signals? Some appear to be audio frequencies designed to cause discomfort. Others look like visual patterns meant to induce nausea or vertigo. Da-Yun sighed. Put it on speakers. Let's see what they're up to now. The bridge filled with a high-pitched whining sound that made several Coalition species flee in terror. The humans looked around at each other with mild interest. Sounds like feedback from the old subway system back home, commented young Sue. Or my grandmother's tea kettle, added Min-Ho with a laugh. The sound changed to deep, rumbling bass tones designed to trigger primal fear of predators. The humans found it soothing. Now that's nice, said Da-Un, settling back in her captain's chair. Reminds me of sleeping near the spaceport. Those cargo ships have such a comforting sound. Down in engineering, Taemin was actually humming, along with the bass frequencies while he worked on the engine calibrations. The vibrations helped him feel when the machinery was properly aligned. Dr. Vex 9 monitored the results from his laboratory aboard the Coalition flagship. Each psychological weapon he deployed had the opposite effect he intended. The humans treated pain-inducing sounds as background noise, fear-inducing visuals as entertainment, and stress-inducing chemicals as performance enhancers. Sir, they're sending us a message, reported the communications officer. Captain Da-Yun appeared, on screen looking completely relaxed. Hello again. We wanted to thank you for the sound therapy session. Our crew is feeling much more alert and focused. Our productivity is up 15% across all departments. Dr. Vex 9's tentacles twitched in frustration. Ask them about their homeworld, he suggested to Admiral Bitna. I need to understand what kind of environment produced beings like this. Admiral Bitna nodded and opened a channel. Captain Da-Yun, we're curious about your species' origins. What is your homeworld like? Earth? Oh, it's wonderful, Da-Yun replied enthusiastically. We have beautiful cities filled with the sounds of industry and commerce. The air is rich with the sense of progress and civilization. There's always something interesting happening. Explosions from construction sites, the rumble of traffic, the smell of factories working hard to build the future. Dr. Vex 9 made frantic notes. This species described industrial pollution and urban noise as positive experiences. What about natural disasters? He asked through Admiral Bitna. We get some great storms, Da-Un continued. Hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, they keep life exciting. Nothing like the thrill of riding out a typhoon or watching a good volcanic light show, and winter storms. There's nothing quite like the challenge of surviving when nature throws everything it has at you. The coalition scientists exchanged horrified glances. These humans described catastrophic weather events as entertainment. "Tell me about your food," Dr. Vex 9 pressed, hoping to find some weakness. "Oh, we love spicy food. The hotter the better. We compete to see who can eat the most painful peppers. And we discovered fermentation thousands of years ago. We let our food rot in controlled ways to make it more flavorful. Some of our best dishes are made from ingredients that would be toxic to most species." Young Su's voice came from off-screen. "Don't forget about coffee, Captain." "Right. Coffee is wonderful. We take beans, burn them until they're black, then grind them up and pour boiling water through them. The result is bitter, acidic, and contains enough stimulants to keep us awake for days. We drink it constantly." Dr. Vex 9 was taking notes so fast his tentacles were becoming tangled. These humans had weaponized their own diet. "What about your history?" Admiral Bitna asked, hoping to understand how such a species evolved. "Humans have always been survivors," Da-Yun said proudly. "We've fought through ice ages, plagues, wars, famines, and disasters that would wipe out most species. Every time something tries to kill us, we adapt and become stronger." She gestured to someone off-screen. "Minho, tell them about the Great Wars." The young communications officer stepped into view. "We had 2 global wars in the 20th century. Millions died. Entire continents burned, and we developed weapons capable of destroying our entire planet. But we learned from it and built a better world." "You had wars that covered your entire planet?" Admiral Bitna's voice was barely a whisper. "Several times throughout history," Da-Un confirmed. "And we're still here. Humans don't give up easily." Dr. Vex 9 realized with growing horror that he wasn't dealing with a normal species. These humans had evolved in conditions that would serve as effective torture for most galactic civilizations. What they considered normal life was, by coalition standards, an extreme survival scenario. "Sir," he whispered to Admiral Bitna, "I don't think we have any psychological weapons that will work on them. Their entire culture is built around thriving in conditions we would consider warfare." "Then we'll have to try something different," the Admiral replied grimly. She opened a channel to Captain Hyan Wu. "Captain, I want you to deploy our strongest chemical agents. Use everything we have." "Admiral, our strongest compounds are classified as weapons of mass destruction. They're designed to incapacitate entire planets. These humans have proven immune to everything else. It's time to test their limits." Back on the Soul's Pride, the crew was going about their normal duties when Yunji, the medical officer, detected new chemical compounds entering their atmosphere. "Captain, they're trying different chemicals now. These are much more concentrated than before." "Any danger to the crew?" "Not immediately, but I'm seeing some interesting compounds. High concentrations of industrial solvents, toxic metals, and what appears to be synthetic fear pheromones enhanced with neural disruptors." The crew waited for the effects to hit. Instead, productivity increased again. "This is fantastic," called Tae-Min from engineering. "These solvents are cleaning years of buildup from the air recyclers. The engines are running cleaner than they have since we left Earth," pilot Dong-Hyun reported from the flight deck. "Navigation systems are running perfectly. Whatever they're using is actually improving our sensor clarity." Captain Da-Yun took a deep breath and smiled. "It's like breathing the air from the old industrial district during the busy season. Makes you feel alive, doesn't it?" Dr. Vex 9 watched his readings in complete despair. Not only were the humans unaffected by compounds that would kill most life forms, they were treating them as environmental improvements. "Sir," he reported to Admiral Bitna, "I believe these humans come from a death world. Their natural environment is so hostile that what we consider lethal weapons, they experience as home comforts." The Admiral stared at the data in disbelief. If these humans could thrive in conditions that would destroy Coalition worlds, what did that say about their military capabilities? "Recall all ships," she ordered. "We need to report this to the High Council immediately." As the Coalition fleet began its retreat, Captain Da-Un sent one final message. "Thanks for all the atmospheric enhancements. Our ship is running better than ever. If you have any more of those industrial compounds, we'd be happy to trade for them. Safe travels." The message filled Admiral Bitna with a chill that had nothing to do with her ship's climate control. They had just encountered a species that turned weapons into improvements. And somewhere in the back of her mind, she wondered what humans might consider weapons if this was what they called comfort. Coalition xenobiologist Jin Ai had worked with over 200 different species during her career, but the human data files made her question everything she thought she knew about biology. She sat in her laboratory aboard the research vessel. Scientific progress, surrounded by holographic displays showing impossible readings. "Computer, replay the atmospheric analysis from the human encounter," she commanded. The air around her filled with floating chemical formulas and biological data. According to every Coalition model, the humans should have died within minutes of exposure to their psychological warfare compounds. Instead, they had thrived. "Computer, access the human cultural database we intercepted from their ship." New information flooded the displays. Jine began reading through human history files, and with each page, her 4 eyes widened further in disbelief. The first document was titled Earth Environmental History. According to human records, their homeworld had undergone something called the Industrial Revolution, during which they had filled their atmosphere with chemicals that would be considered lethal weapons by Coalition standards. "Computer, analyze these atmospheric readings from human cities." The results made Jine's breathing apparatus hiss with alarm. Human urban areas contained concentrations of carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, and particulate matter that exceeded Coalition safety limits by factors of 10 or more. But the humans didn't just survive in these conditions. They built their entire civilization around them. She pulled up images of human cities from their database. Massive structures reached toward the sky, belching smoke and steam into the air. Millions of vehicles burned fuel and released exhaust gases. Industrial complexes worked around the clock, filling the air with the byproducts of manufacturing, and the humans called it beautiful. Jin-Ai found records of humans traveling to their cities specifically to experience the atmosphere. They wrote poetry about the romance of industrial sunsets created by atmospheric pollution. They found the sounds of traffic and machinery soothing. "This is impossible," she whispered. But the data was undeniable. She dug deeper into the human files and found something even more disturbing. Their recreational activities. Humans deliberately exposed themselves to danger for fun. They jumped from high places attached only to elastic cords. They rode vehicles at dangerous speeds. They climbed mountains in conditions that would kill most species. One file described something called extreme sports, where humans sought out the most dangerous possible activities and competed to survive them. Another documented their fascination with spicy food. They had cultivated plants specifically to produce chemical compounds that caused pain, then ate them for pleasure. "Computer, analyze human dietary preferences." The results were horrifying. Humans consumed alcohol, a substance that was literally poisonous to their own nervous systems, as a recreational drug. They ate fermented foods that contained bacteria that would be considered biological weapons by most civilizations. They cooked their food with flame and heat that would sterilize coalition surgical equipment, and they had been doing this for thousands of years. Jin-Ae pulled up the geological records from Earth and made another shocking discovery. The human homeworld was a disaster zone by galactic standards. It suffered regular earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, hurricanes, tornadoes, and ice ages. The planet's weather patterns were so violent that the humans had developed an entire scientific discipline just to predict them. But instead of fleeing to safer worlds, the humans had adapted to thrive in chaos. Their cities were built in earthquake zones because they liked the excitement. They lived on the slopes of active volcanoes because the soil was fertile. They built coastal cities in hurricane paths because they enjoyed the dramatic weather. Ginny realized she was looking at the evolution of a species that had turned environmental hostility into an evolutionary advantage. Every disaster that would destroy other civilizations had made humans stronger. Computer, access, human military history. This was where the files became truly terrifying. Humans had spent most of their history fighting each other in wars that made coalition conflicts look like diplomatic disagreements. They had developed weapons capable of destroying their entire planet multiple times over, then chose not to use them because they realized it would end their species. The concept of mutually assured destruction, the idea that weapons could be too dangerous to use, was uniquely human. Most species either avoided developing such weapons or used them immediately. Humans had built them as a way to prevent war through fear. They had literally weaponized the threat of their own extinction. Jin-Ae found records of human conflicts where entire continents were battlefields. They had fought in frozen wastelands, burning deserts, toxic swamps, and high mountain ranges. They had developed tactics for fighting in every possible environment, including underwater and in space. Most disturbing of all, they had done this while simultaneously developing art, music, literature, and philosophy. Human culture celebrated both creation and destruction as equally valid expressions of their nature. Computer, analyze human population distribution patterns. The data showed that humans preferred to live in the most challenging environments on their planet. Their largest cities were built in areas prone to natural disasters. Their most productive agricultural regions were in zones that suffered regular floods, droughts, and storms. They didn't just tolerate harsh conditions, they were attracted. To them, Ginny accessed the human ship's engineering reports and found more evidence of their strange psychology. The Soul's Pride was built using manufacturing techniques that prioritized durability over efficiency. Every system had multiple backups and was designed to keep functioning even when severely damaged. The ship's atmosphere recycling system was a perfect example. Instead of the clean, sterile air preferred by most species, it maintained the same polluted mixture the humans were used to on Earth. They had literally brought their toxic homeworld environment with them into space. But the most revealing data came from human entertainment media. Jin-Ae accessed their movies, books, and games, expecting to find escapist fantasies about peaceful worlds. Instead, she found stories celebrating survival against impossible odds. Humans created entertainment based on scenarios where everything went wrong, and heroes had to overcome disasters, invasions, plagues, and catastrophes. They called these stories exciting and inspiring. Their fictional heroes were characters who thrived in the worst possible circumstances. Their villains were often those who sought to create perfect, peaceful worlds, which humans found boring and unnatural. Computer, compile a threat assessment report based on this data. The analysis was clear. Humans were not just another spacefaring species. They were survivors of a world that would serve as an effective prison planet for most galactic civilizations. Their entire culture was built around adapting to and overcoming hostile conditions. What the Coalition used as weapons, humans used as environmental conditioning. What other species considered natural disasters, humans considered interesting weather. What most civilizations would classify as toxic waste, humans called the sense of home. Jin-A realized that the Coalition had made a terrible mistake in their first contact protocols. They had tried to intimidate creatures who found intimidation familiar and comforting. They had deployed fear against beings who had evolved beyond normal fear responses. Worse yet, if humans were this adapted to hostile conditions, what would they consider actual weapons? She began composing her report to the High Council, knowing that it would change everything the Coalition thought they knew about the nature of life in the galaxy. Priority message to Coalition Command, she dictated. Subject: humans. Classification: upgrade to extreme environmental specialists. Summary: we have encountered a species that considers our weapons of mass destruction to be environmental amenities. Recommend immediate diplomatic approach before we accidentally discover what they consider hostile. As she sent the message, Jin-A wondered if the Coalition was prepared to deal with beings who had turned survival itself into an art form. Humans didn't just come from a harsh world. They had made themselves into the kind of creatures that harsh worlds created. And now they were loose in a galaxy that had no idea what they were capable of. Chief Engineer Wanbin wiped sweat from his forehead as he studied the Coalition ships through the Soul's Pride's sensor array. The aliens had been following them for 3 days now, occasionally releasing new chemical compounds into space. Each time, the human crew felt more energized and focused. "Captain, I think I understand what they're trying to do," he called to Da-Yun over the intercom. "What's your analysis?" She replied from the bridge. "They're testing us. Each gas mixture gets stronger, more concentrated. They're trying to find our breaking point." Da-Yun appeared in the engineering section a few minutes later, ducking under low-hanging pipes and stepping around exposed machinery. The Soul's Pride wasn't built for comfort, but it was built to last. "Any ideas for how we should respond?" she asked. Wanbin grinned and gestured toward a collection of tanks near the environmental controls. "Well, we could show them what we consider normal atmosphere." "Explain." "These tanks contain standard Earth air from different regions. I've got samples from Seoul, Beijing, Los Angeles, and Mexico City. All perfectly normal air that any human would find comfortable." Da-Un raised an eyebrow. "And you think that would affect them how?" "Captain, if they're having trouble with our industrial compounds, imagine how they'd react to pure clean air. Most aliens probably evolved in sterile environments. They might find our fresh mountain air mixture completely overwhelming." Young Su joined them from his tactical station, having heard the conversation over the comm system. "It's worth trying. They've been treating us like a science experiment. Maybe it's time to return the favor." Captain Da-Un considered the options. The Coalition ships had shown no hostile intent beyond their chemical testing, but their behavior suggested they saw humans as subjects to be studied rather than equals to be respected. "Do it," she decided, "but start with something mild. Let's try that mountain air sample from the Korean countryside." Wonbin moved to the environmental controls and began adjusting the ship's external venting system. Instead of recycling their atmosphere internally, he began releasing it into space around their ship. "Releasing atmosphere now," he announced. "Pure oxygen mixed with trace elements from pine forests, grass meadows, and clean streams." On the Coalition flagship Harmony's Edge, Captain Hyon Wu was reviewing Dr. Vex 9's latest failed psychological warfare report when his sensor officer began shouting alarms. "Captain, the human ship is venting atmosphere." "Are they in distress?" Hyon Wu rushed to the sensor station. "No, sir. It appears to be intentional. They're releasing their internal air mixture into space around their ship." Dr. Vex 9's tentacles writhed with excitement. "Excellent! Now we can analyze their natural atmospheric preferences and develop countermeasures." The chemical analysis began immediately, but within minutes, strange things started happening aboard the Coalition ship. Several crew members in the forward sections began reporting drowsiness and disorientation. "Sir, we're detecting trace amounts of the human atmosphere in our air recycling system," reported the environmental officer. "How is that possible? We're in space." "The human gas release is so dense it's affecting our intake vents. Our systems are trying to filter it, but some is getting through." Dr. Vex 9 studied his readings with growing alarm. "Captain, their atmosphere contains oxygen concentrations that are toxic to most species. Pure oxygen makes up over 20% of their air mixture." The effects became more pronounced as the human atmosphere continued to spread. Coalition crew members were becoming sluggish and confused. Several had to be taken to the medical bay after experiencing what their doctor described as oxygen poisoning. "Sir, the tactical crew is reporting difficulty concentrating," announced the officer of the watch. "Whatever the humans are releasing is affecting our cognitive abilities." Captain Hyon Wu felt his own thinking becoming fuzzy. The air tasted strange, too clean, too pure. It reminded him of the sterile medical facilities where he had recovered from injuries, places that smelled of death and antiseptic. "Deploy." "Countermeasures!" he ordered, but his words came out slurred. The Coalition ship's defense systems activated, trying to create a barrier against the human atmosphere. But the damage was already done. Across the ship, crew members were struggling to perform basic functions. On the Soul's Pride, Captain Da-eun watched the Coalition response with interest. "They're definitely having problems with our air," Young-Soo reported from his sensors. "Their ship's energy output is dropping and their maneuvering is becoming erratic." "Are we hurting them?" Da-eun asked, concerned. Wonbin checked his readings. "I don't think so. It looks more like they're getting drowsy. Pure oxygen can be overwhelming if you're not used to it." Medical Officer Yun-ji joined the conversation. "It makes sense. If they evolved in sterile, controlled environments, our natural atmosphere might be too stimulating for their systems. It's like giving someone too much coffee when they're used to drinking water." Captain Da-eun opened a communication channel to the Coalition ship. "Captain Hyon Wu, are you all right over there? We noticed some changes in your ship's behavior." The response came back slowly, with Hyon Wu's words slurred and confused. What are you doing to us?" "We're just sharing some fresh air from our home world. It's a beautiful spring day mixture from the Korean mountains. Very clean and natural." "Stop. It's too much." Dr. Vex 9's voice came over the channel, his breathing apparatus working overtime. "The oxygen, it's burning our lungs. How do you survive in this?" Wonbin answered cheerfully. "Oh, this is mild compared to what we're used to. This is vacation air. You should try breathing the atmosphere from downtown Seoul during rush hour." The thought seemed to horrify the Coalition crew even more. "Wait," Yunji said quietly. "If they're having this much trouble with clean mountain air, how do they handle emergencies?" Young-Soo ran a tactical scan of the Coalition ship. "Their life support systems are working at maximum capacity just to filter out our atmosphere. If they had to deal with actual industrial pollution or combat damage..." The implications were staggering. The Coalition had built their entire military doctrine around psychological warfare and intimidation, but their crews were so adapted to perfect conditions that they couldn't function in the environments humans considered normal. "Captain Da-un," Hyen Wu's voice came over the comm, now desperate. "Please, stop the gas release! Our crew is... we can't..." "Of course," Da-un replied immediately, signaling Wanbin to stop the atmospheric venting. "We didn't mean to cause distress. We were just trying to share a bit of home with you." The Coalition ship began to recover as their air filtration systems cleared the human atmosphere from their environment. But the damage to their confidence was permanent. Dr. Vex 9's report to Admiral Bitna was brief and terrifying. "Sir, the humans have deployed a counter-weapon that we cannot defend against. They have weaponized clean air. Explain." "Their natural atmosphere is so pure and oxygen-rich that it overwhelms our biological systems. What they consider a pleasant spring day would incapacitate our entire fleet." Admiral Bitna felt a chill. That had nothing to do with her ship's environmental controls. "Are you saying that humans live in conditions that would serve as chemical weapons against us?" "Yes, sir. And if their clean mountain air can disable our ships, I don't want to know what their industrial atmosphere would do to us." The Admiral realized that they were facing a species that didn't just survive in hostile environments, they had become a hostile environment themselves. Every breath a human took was potentially toxic to other species. As the Coalition fleet retreated to a safe distance, Captain Da-Yun sent a final message. "Sorry about the confusion with the air samples. We'd love to show you more of Earth's atmosphere sometime. We have wonderful varieties from all over the planet." The message made Admiral Bitna's scales turn pale. If the humans had wonderful varieties of atmosphere, and the mildest version had nearly disabled a Coalition fleet, what were they capable of when they were actually trying to fight? She realized that the Coalition had stumbled upon something unprecedented, a species that was naturally adapted to conditions that could serve as weapons of mass destruction against the rest of the galaxy, and the humans didn't even know they were dangerous. Admiral Bitna's scaled hands shook as she composed her emergency report to the Galactic Council. The encounter with the humans had shattered everything the Coalition thought they knew about first contact protocols and military doctrine. Personal. Log, Admiral Bitna, classification, Emergency Council review, she dictated to the ship's computer. 3 days ago, we encountered a species calling themselves humans. Initial contact followed standard intimidation protocols, but every weapon we deployed against them had the opposite intended effect. She paused, still struggling to believe her own words. The humans treated our psychological warfare compounds as atmospheric enhancements. They described our fear gas as nostalgic and comfortable. When we escalated to lethal chemical weapons, they thanked us for improving their ship's efficiency. The Admiral pulled up the sensor readings from the human counterattack. The data still seemed impossible. Most concerning, when the humans deployed their own atmospheric mixture against us, it proved to be a weapon we have no defense against. What they described as clean mountain air incapacitated 30% of our crew and forced us to retreat. She transmitted the report with the highest priority coding and waited for the inevitable response. It came within hours. Admiral Bitna, report to the Galactic Council chambers immediately, came the message from Council President Koltar. Bring all data from the human encounter. The journey to the Council station took 2 days at maximum speed. During that time, Admiral Bitna received dozens of messages from other Coalition commanders reporting similar encounters with human vessels throughout the sector. Captain Voss Loom of the patrol ship Stellar Watch reported that humans had offered to share their breakfast coffee with his crew. Chemical analysis revealed that the human beverage contained enough stimulants to keep a Coalition soldier awake for weeks, and enough acidic compounds to dissolve hull plating. Commander Jixtar from the Border Patrol had encountered a human cargo vessel whose crew was casually repairing their ship while floating in hard vacuum. They had laughed off the radiation levels that would kill most species and worked in conditions that the Coalition considered uninhabitable. Most disturbing was the report from science vessel Deep Knowledge. They had monitored a human colony ship and discovered that the humans were deliberately terraforming worlds to match Earth's hostile conditions. Instead of seeking out peaceful, habitable planets, they were taking barren worlds and making them more dangerous. The Galactic Council chambers were in chaos when Admiral Bitna arrived. Representatives from 147 species filled the vast circular amphitheater, their translation devices creating a cacophony of panicked voices. Council President Koltar, an elderly being whose species had helped found the Coalition 3,000 years ago, called for order with his ceremonial staff. Admiral Bitna, present your findings to the Council. The Admiral activated her holographic display system and began her presentation. The chamber fell silent as the data from the human encounters filled the air above them. Honored Council members, we have encountered a species unlike anything in our databases. They call themselves humans, and they appear to be naturally adapted to conditions we would classify as military-grade chemical warfare. Worried murmurs filled the chamber. Representative Quindal from the Peaceful Worlds Alliance raised a tentacled hand. Admiral, surely you exaggerate. No species could evolve to thrive in such hostile conditions. I thought the same thing, Representative Quindal, but the evidence is undeniable. Admiral Bitna displayed the atmospheric readings from human cities. These are normal living conditions on the human homeworld. The readings caused an uproar. Several representatives had to activate their emergency life support systems just from seeing the chemical concentrations humans considered normal. Order, President Koltar demanded. Admiral, continue your report. The humans have proven immune to all our psychological warfare compounds. Worse, they treated our most potent chemical weapons as environmental improvements. When they deployed their own atmospheric mixture against us, it incapacitated our crew so effectively that we were forced to retreat. Representative Zilmar from the warrior clans stood up, his 6 arms crossed skeptically. One species cannot be a threat to the entire coalition. We have faced aggressive aliens before. With respect, Representative Zilmar, the humans are not aggressive in the traditional sense. They're adaptive. Every challenge we present becomes something they incorporate into their advantage. Admiral Bitna displayed the communication logs from Captain Da-Un. Listen to their response to our chemical weapons. The chamber filled with the sound of Captain Da-Un thanking the Coalition for the atmospheric enhancements and requesting more industrial compounds for trade. They asked for more, Admiral Bitna emphasized. They wanted to trade for the chemicals we use as weapons of mass destruction. The council chamber erupted into panic. Representatives began shouting in dozens of languages, translation systems, overloading from the volume of simultaneous conversations. President Coulthard struck his staff against the floor repeatedly until order was restored. "What is the Council's assessment of the human threat level?" he asked formally. Science advisor Ginny, who had joined the session via hologram from her research vessel, spoke up. "Honored President, I've completed a full analysis of human culture and biology. These beings don't represent a traditional military threat. They represent an existential challenge to our understanding of life itself." She activated her own displays, showing images from human cities and recreational activities. Humans deliberately seek out hostile environments for entertainment. They modify their food to cause pain, their drinks to alter their brain chemistry, and their atmosphere to contain industrial toxins. What we consider torture, they consider normal life. Representative Hav 9 from the Science Coalition asked the question everyone was thinking. "Are they trying to conquer us?" "No," Ginny replied. "That's what makes them so dangerous. They're not trying to hurt anyone. This is simply how they exist. They're as surprised by our reactions as we are by theirs." Admiral Bitna nodded grimly. The human captain expressed genuine concern when our crew was affected by their atmospheric release. They stopped immediately and apologized. They don't understand that they're naturally weaponized. The implications sank in across the chamber. If humans were naturally adapted to conditions that could serve as weapons against other species, what happened when they encountered civilizations that couldn't defend against their basic biological functions? President Coulthard consulted with his advisors before addressing the assembly. This council faces an unprecedented decision. We have encountered a species that may represent the most dangerous threat to galactic peace we have ever faced, not through malice, but through their very nature. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle over the chamber. However, they have shown no aggressive intent. Their actions suggest they wish to explore and trade peacefully. The question before us is, how do we coexist with beings who are naturally toxic to most life in the galaxy? Representative Quindal suggested a quarantine zone. Representative Zilmar argued for preemptive military action. Others proposed attempting to modify human biology to make them less dangerous. Science advisor Jin A cut through the arguments with a single observation. "Honored Council, we may not have a choice in this matter. According to our sensor readings, there are at least 12 billion humans on their homeworld, and they're expanding into space rapidly." The chamber fell silent as the reality of the situation became clear. The humans weren't just another species seeking to join galactic civilization. They were a force of nature that had achieved spaceflight, and they were spreading throughout the galaxy whether the coalition was ready for them or not. I recommend we classify humans as an environmental extremophile species and develop new protocols for interaction, Admiral Bitna concluded. We need to learn to coexist with them because they're not going to change to accommodate us. President Coulthard called for a recess while the council considered its options. As the representatives filed out to consult with their governments, one thought echoed through the chamber. The galaxy would never be the same again. 6 months after the initial human contact, the Galactic Council's emergency protocols were finally ready. The massive station orbiting the neutral world of Kepler Prime had been completely retrofitted with what engineers called human compatibility systems. Station Commander Will Talk checked his environmental readings one final time. Every section of the station now had dual atmosphere controls, with separate systems for standard galactic air and the toxic mixture humans called normal. The medical bays had been stocked with treatments for oxygen poisoning, chemical burns, and what human medical data called caffeine withdrawal. "Sir, the human diplomatic vessel is approaching, announced Communications Officer Vel Sara. Through the station's main viewport, Commander Wiltalk could see the human ship approaching. The New Horizon looked exactly like the other human vessels they had encountered. Rough, patched, and trailing a faint haze of atmospheric leakage that would be considered an environmental disaster by any other species. All stations, prepare for human arrival, he announced over the station-wide communications system. Remember, what smells toxic to us smells like home to them. Keep your breathing apparatus sealed and your protective gear active. The human ship docked with a series of mechanical clanks and hisses that would have indicated critical system failures on any coalition vessel. From the humans, it was apparently normal operating procedure. Ambassador Minho stepped through the airlock wearing what appeared to be a simple business suit. He carried no breathing apparatus, no protective gear, and no environmental shield. The air around him shimmered slightly from the chemical compounds he was naturally exhaling. Ambassador Minho, welcome to Kepler Station, Commander Wiltalk said through his breathing filter. I hope your journey was comfortable. Very pleasant, thank you, Minho replied with a warm smile. Though I have to say, your station's air filtration system is remarkably efficient. It's almost too clean in here. 3 coalition maintenance engineers who had been working nearby suddenly felt dizzy and had to retreat to emergency breathing. Stations. Minho's casual presence was affecting the local atmosphere. Perhaps we should move to the prepared diplomatic chambers, Commander Wiltalk suggested quickly. The diplomatic meeting room had been specially constructed for human interaction. Force fields separated the human ambassador from the coalition. Representatives, with independent air circulation systems preventing any cross-contamination. The walls were lined with sensors monitoring the atmospheric composition in real time. Ambassador Min Ho looked around the elaborate setup with amusement. This is quite impressive. Though I have to ask, are you afraid of me? Council President Coulthar, participating via hologram from a safe distance, answered carefully. Not afraid, Ambassador, but we've learned to respect your species' unique environmental adaptations. Our environmental adaptations. Science advisor Jin-A activated her holographic displays, showing the atmospheric readings from human encounters over the past months. Ambassador, your species appears to be naturally adapted to conditions that are challenging for most galactic life forms. Minho studied the data with interest. These are readings from our ships and colonies? Yes. The chemical concentrations that your people find comfortable would require evacuation protocols for most coalition worlds. The human ambassador looked genuinely surprised. I had no idea. We always just thought of it as normal air. Admiral Bitna joined the conversation from her flagship. Ambassador, during our first encounter, your crew thanked us for deploying chemical compounds that were designed as psychological warfare agents. Oh, that, Minho laughed. Yes, Captain Da Yun mentioned that in her reports. She said it reminded the crew of home, made everyone more productive. The casual way he described weapons-grade chemical compounds as productivity enhancers sent worried ripples through the coalition representatives. Ambassador, President Coulthar said slowly. We need to understand your species better. Your natural biology appears to be incompatible with most galactic civilization standards. Minho nodded thoughtfully. I see the problem. We've encountered this before when establishing colonies on other worlds. Most planets are too clean for us to feel comfortable. We usually have to do Some terraforming to make them more like Earth. Terraforming? Jin-A asked nervously. Oh, yes. We add industrial complexes, increase atmospheric density, introduce some beneficial pollutants. Make the air more interesting to breathe. Most worlds are too sterile for human psychology. The coalition representatives exchanged horrified glances. Humans were deliberately making worlds more toxic as a matter of routine colonization. What? Do you consider an ideal environment? President Koltar asked. Well, Earth is perfect, of course. Nice thick atmosphere with plenty of variety, industrial districts for productivity, mountain air for relaxation, ocean breezes with salt and seaweed scents, cities with good traffic patterns to keep the air moving and interesting. Commander Will Talk checked his environmental readings. Even through the force fields and filtration systems, the station's air quality was slowly degrading just from Minho's presence. Ambassador, we need to discuss practical matters for coexistence, Admiral Bitna said. Your species' natural emissions are affecting our ability to share environments. Emissions? When you breathe, speak, or simply exist in our presence, you release compounds that are overwhelming to our biological systems. Minho looked concerned. Are we hurting you? We certainly don't want to cause harm. Not harm exactly, Jin-A explained. But your normal biological functions create conditions that our species find extremely challenging. It's like, imagine if every breath you took contained enough stimulants to keep you awake for days. That actually sounds kind of nice, Minho replied honestly. The comment sent another wave of worry through the coalition representatives. President Koltar addressed the core issue. Ambassador, we need to establish protocols that allow our civilizations to interact safely. This may require separate atmospheric zones, specialized equipment, and careful environmental controls. Of course, we're happy to accommodate. Though, I have to ask, how do you handle emergencies if you need such controlled conditions? What do you mean? Well, what happens when your life support fails, or your ship gets damaged, or you have to work in hostile environments? How do you adapt? The question revealed the fundamental difference between human and coalition thinking. Most galactic species avoided hostile conditions. Humans assumed they were inevitable and planned accordingly. Admiral Bitna answered reluctantly. We evacuate or call for rescue. Our ships are designed to maintain perfect conditions at all times. Ah, Minho said, understanding dawning on his face. So when we accidentally overwhelmed your crew with our mountain air sample, you had no backup protocols for dealing with unexpected atmospheric changes? That's correct. Minho was quiet for a moment, processing the implications. I think I understand now. You've built your civilization around avoiding the kinds of conditions we consider normal. No wonder we seem dangerous to you. He looked around at the elaborate safety systems surrounding him. This must have been expensive to build. The safety of galactic civilization is worth any expense, President Koltar replied formally. But what if we could find a middle ground? Minho suggested. Maybe we could help you develop better emergency protocols, and you could help us understand galactic standards better. The suggestion was revolutionary. Instead of trying to contain humans or avoid them, the ambassador was proposing cooperation. Science advisor Jin-A was the first to respond. That could be valuable. Your species' adaptability might provide insights into survival technologies we've never considered. And our industrial techniques might be useful for worlds with harsh conditions, Minho added. We've gotten very good at making uninhabitable places comfortable. Commander Wiltock watched his environmental readings as the conversation continued. Despite all their safety precautions, the human ambassador's presence was slowly changing the station's atmosphere. But instead of the panic he expected, his crew was reporting increased alertness and focus. Maybe coexistence was possible after all. President Koltar made the formal announcement. The Galactic Council accepts humanity's application for diplomatic relations, with the understanding that special protocols will be required for safe interaction. Ambassador Minho smiled. Thank you, President. Koltar, we look forward to being part of the galactic community. As he spoke, every air quality sensor on the station registered changes that would normally trigger evacuation alarms. But for the first time, no one was running away. The galaxy had just gained its most unusual member species. 1 year after first contact, the Galactic Council Station had become something unprecedented in Coalition history. A truly multi-species environment. Ambassador Minho walked through the diplomatic quarter, breathing easily in what was now called the Mixed Atmosphere Zone. The station's environmental engineers had performed miracles of adaptation. Special atmospheric processors maintained dozens of different air mixtures throughout the station. Coalition species had their clean, sterile environments. Humans had their comfortable industrial atmosphere. And in the common areas, a carefully balanced mixture allowed both types of beings to coexist. Ambassador Minho, called out Representative Quindal, approaching with his latest model breathing apparatus. The device was much smaller than the bulky equipment Coalition members had used initially. How are the new atmospheric adjustments working for you? Much better, thank you, Minho replied. Though I have to admit I miss the smell of a good traffic jam. The Seoul District air recyclers did an amazing job of capturing that urban energy. Quindal's tentacles twitched with what humans had learned was amusement. Over the months, Coalition species had begun to understand human expressions and even appreciate their strange perspective on life. I still don't understand how you find vehicle exhaust energizing, Quindal said. But our productivity studies show that Coalition workers perform 20% better in the mixed atmosphere zones. Dr. Jin A believes it's because the trace stimulants help with focus. They walked together toward the main council chambers, where the first joint human coalition project was being unveiled. The walls were lined with representatives from across the galaxy, all wearing various levels of protective equipment depending on their species' sensitivity to human atmospheric compounds. President Koltar stood at the center podium, no longer requiring a holographic projection. His species had adapted better than most to human presence, though he still wore a breathing filter as a precaution. Fellow council members, he announced, today we celebrate the completion of our first collaborative project with our human colleagues. Ambassador Minho, would you please present the results? Minho stepped forward, and the air around him immediately became more interesting to breathe. Even after a year, his natural presence affected the local atmosphere in ways that most species found strangely invigorating. Thank you, President Koltar. Ladies, gentlemen, and distinguished beings of all classifications, he began with a smile, we're proud to present the Emergency Survival Protocol System. A holographic display activated, showing a device that looked like a combination of human, industrial equipment, and coalition precision technology. The problem was simple, Minho continued. Coalition ships and stations are designed for perfect conditions. When something goes wrong, you have no backup protocols for dealing with hostile environments. Humans, on the other hand, assume everything will go wrong and plan accordingly. He gestured to Admiral Bitna, who had become an unexpected advocate for human coalition cooperation. Admiral Bitnah's engineers worked with our survival specialists to create something new, equipment that allows coalition species to survive in conditions that would normally require evacuation. The device was elegant in its simplicity. It provided emergency life support that could function in environments ranging from pure vacuum to highly contaminated atmospheres. Most importantly, it included what humans called adaptation protocols, systems that gradually helped other species adjust to less than perfect conditions. We tested it on volunteers from my crew, Admiral Bitnah reported. The results exceeded all expectations. Personnel equipped with the new system could continue working in atmospheric conditions that previously required immediate medical evacuation. Representative Zilmar from the warrior clans raised his 6 arms in approval. This technology could revolutionize space exploration. No longer would we need to avoid hostile worlds or retreat when conditions become challenging. But that's just the beginning, Minho added. We've also developed what we call human-safe atmospheric processors for coalition use. Another holographic display showed atmospheric recycling systems that looked much more robust than standard coalition equipment. These processors can handle atmospheric contamination levels that would overwhelm normal coalition life support, explained Chief Engineer Wanbin, who had joined the diplomatic team. But they also include what we call comfort settings that provide the clean, controlled atmosphere coalition species prefer. Science advisor Jin Ai, who had become the leading expert on human biology, stepped forward. The implications go beyond emergency survival. These systems allow us to explore and colonize worlds that were previously considered uninhabitable. She activated a star map showing dozens of worlds that had been classified as hostile by coalition surveys. With human atmospheric adaptation technology, these worlds become potential colony sites. We estimate that the habitable territory available to coalition species has increased by over 300%. The revelation caused excited conversations throughout the chamber. Worlds that had been written off as too dangerous were suddenly valuable real estate. Commander Wiltalk, who managed the station's day-to-day operations, provided the practical perspective. Living with humans has taught us something important. Hostile environments are only hostile if you're not prepared for them. He gestured around the chamber, where coalition and human representatives were working together in the same space, Medivh. Year ago, we thought humans were a threat to galactic civilization. Now we realize they're not dangerous. They're prepared. There's a difference. Ambassador Minho nodded appreciatively. We've learned a lot, too. Coalition precision engineering has helped us create much more efficient atmospheric systems. Our new colony ships use half the fuel of our old designs while providing better environmental control. President Koltar called for formal recognition of the partnership's success. The Galactic Council hereby approves the expansion of human coalition. Collaboration. Ambassador Minho, we would like to invite humanity to full membership in the coalition. The chamber erupted in approval from dozens of species. What had started as a potential crisis had become the foundation for unprecedented cooperation. We accept with honor, Minho replied. Though I should warn you, we have about 40 more colony ships launching from Earth next month. They'll all need atmospheric compatibility updates for coalition space. Representative Quindal laughed through his breathing apparatus. We'll start producing the new equipment immediately. Though I have to ask, do all human colony ships smell like industrial complexes? Oh, that's nothing. Minho grinned. Wait until you meet a ship that's been running on recycled coffee and determination for 6 months. Now that's an atmospheric experience. The comment that would have horrified coalition members a year ago now generated amused conversations about human engineering philosophy. As the formal session ended, representatives mingled in ways that would have been impossible before human contact. Coalition species wearing their adaptation equipment worked alongside humans who were simply breathing normally. The mixed atmosphere zones had become popular gathering places where different species could interact safely. Station Commander Wiltalk approached Ambassador Minho as the crowds dispersed. "Ambassador, I have a confession to make." "Oh?" "When you first arrived, I was terrified. Your species seemed like a threat to everything we had built. Now," he gestured around the thriving station, "I can't imagine the coalition without humans." Minho smiled and took a deep breath of the station's mixed atmosphere. "You know, Commander, when we first left Earth, we thought we'd have to change to fit in with galactic civilization. Instead, we helped change what galactic civilization could be." "How so?" "Before us, the Coalition avoided dangerous places and difficult situations. Now you're planning to explore worlds you never thought possible. You've learned to adapt instead of just avoiding." Commander Wiltalk considered this. "So humans didn't just join the galaxy? You made the galaxy more human?" "More adaptable," Minho corrected. "And that benefits everyone." Through the station's main viewport, they could see human and coalition ships working together in the nearby asteroid field, mining resources from rocks that would have been too dangerous to approach before human industrial techniques made it routine. In the distance, a mixed-species exploration vessel was preparing to depart for one of the newly accessible worlds. Its crew included humans who would handle the hostile environment work and coalition specialists who would manage the precision scientific equipment. "You know," Commander Wiltalk said, "I think this is the beginning of something much bigger than either of our civilizations could have achieved alone." Ambassador Minho nodded, breathing in the mixed atmosphere that now smelled like home to both species. "It smells like the future." As the station hummed with activity around them, representatives from across the galaxy worked together in ways that had never been possible before. Humans had taught the Coalition to survive in hostile conditions. The Coalition had taught humans to reach for perfection. Together, they were building something unprecedented, a galactic civilization that could thrive anywhere, under any conditions, no matter what challenges the universe might throw at them.